The rugged Altai Mountains run for hundreds of miles.
This place is beautiful, but it's incredibly remote, and winters can get down to minus 20 degrees Fahrenheit. And in some places, the ground can be frozen all year round.
A Coloradan has become the 11th person to die.
In 1959, 10 young hikers set off into the icy Siberian wilderness, but they never came back. Their bodies were found in strange ways, and this became one of the greatest mysteries in history, called the Dyatlov Pass incident.
Dyatlov Pass is a very famous story about these hikers that go missing in the 1950s.
For years, people believed an avalanche was to blame, but new evidence suggests otherwise. Yuri Yudin, the only survivor, has finally broken his silence and given answers that just solved this mystery. What really happened to his friends that fateful night? Join us as we let you in on Yuri Yudin's revelations about the Dyatlov Pass tragedy. The sole survivor of the Dyatlov mystery speaks out. Yuri Yudin was the only one who survived the Dyatlov Pass tragedy of 1959, but it wasn't because of luck or skill. It was because of illness. He had set off on the journey with 9 of his closest friends, all excited for their hiking trip into the freezing Siberian wilderness. The group was full of energy, ready to conquer the harsh conditions of the Ural Mountains. They laughed, shared stories, and planned every step of the trip. Yuri had no reason to believe he would never see them again. Early into the journey, Yuri started feeling sick. He fell ill with severe pain caused by rheumatism and a congenital heart condition. The group encouraged him to rest, but Yuri didn't want to leave them. He felt guilty even thinking about it. They were his friends, and they had planned this trip together, but the pain became too much to ignore. Eventually, Yuri had no choice but to turn back. He said goodbye to the group, thinking he would rejoin them later or see them once they returned.
Yuri Yudin, he actually was a little bit sick at the start and he decided to drop out.
What later happened to the 9 hikers, and what did Yuri Yudin, the sole survivor, have to say after the tragedy? Well, keep watching because you're about to find out. Yuri never imagined that leaving his friends would be the last time he would ever see them alive. When news of the tragedy broke out and reached Yuri, he could not believe it. His friends were dead. The strong, capable hikers he had shared so much with were gone. At first, no one knew what had happened to them. Search teams found their bodies in the snow, scattered and broken in strange ways. Some were missing their clothes, others had injuries that were difficult to explain. Their tent had been ripped open from the inside, as if they had been trying to escape something in the middle of the night. Yuri felt a wave of shock and guilt. He had survived by chance, but why? He thought about how close he had been to dying with them. If he hadn't fallen ill, he would have stayed with the group and shared their terrible fate. Yuri often said he felt like fate had chosen him, but he didn't understand why. Instead of feeling lucky, he felt burdened. As time passed, theories about what happened to his friends began to spread. The official explanation was an avalanche. Authorities said the group had panicked and ran from their tent, but Yuri didn't believe it. Yuri would later open up and speak about the tragedy. He spoke often about the deep pain he felt after learning about his friends' mysterious deaths. He described his group as strong, intelligent, and experienced hikers who would not have panicked easily. Yuri could not accept the simple explanation of an avalanche, as the official report claimed. To him, the strange details surrounding their deaths didn't add up. Their tent had been torn open from the inside, as if they were desperately trying to escape. Bodies were found far from the camp, some with severe injuries like broken ribs and skull fractures that didn't match what an avalanche would cause.
They gone up there, and if everybody was in the same place and they had all frozen to death, that's one thing, or if the tent had burned down.
Others were missing clothes, despite the freezing temperatures. Yuri often questioned what had really happened on that dark, cold night. He said his friends must have faced something terrifying to make them leave their tent so suddenly. He imagined what his friends had felt during their final moments. Were they scared? Did they know what was happening? These questions followed him every day. He spent his life searching for answers, but they never came. For Yuri, surviving while his friends died was a heavy burden. He often said he felt as if fate had spared him for some unknown reason, but it brought him no peace. Their loss haunted him. So Yuri longed for the truth, believing his friends deserved justice and answers that the world still could not give. To understand Yuri's pain and story, we have to find out what exactly really happened to the 9 hikers. Stay tuned because what happened next will shock you. What really happened in the Dyatlov Pass incident? When a group of 10 experienced hikers, led by 23-year-old Igor Dyatlov, set out on a challenging expedition through the Ural Mountains in the Soviet Union, they never expected to meet their end. The team, mostly students from the Ural Polytechnic Institute, had one goal: to earn the highest hiking certification, which is grade 3. To achieve this, they needed to complete a 300-kilometer trek across rough and frozen terrain. All members of the group were well prepared, holding grade 2 certificates and having solid experience in skiing and hiking trips. On January 25, 1959, the group started their journey from the town of Ivdel, fully equipped for the harsh weather ahead, but shortly after starting, one member, Yuri Yudin, fell ill. Reluctantly, he turned back on January 28, not realizing this decision would save his life. The remaining 9 hikers, who were Igor Dyatlov, Zenaida Kolmogorova, Rustam Slobodin, Lyudmila Dubinina, Alexander Kolovatov, Yuri Doroshenko, Nikolai Thibault Brignol, Semyon Zolotaryov, and Yuri Krivonashenko, continued their journey, unaware of the tragic fate that awaited them. The group pushed forward, facing freezing temperatures and rough terrain. On January 31st, they reached a valley that led to what would later be called Dyatlov Pass. They set up camp and prepared for their next ascent, but a heavy snowstorm caused them to veer off their planned route, leading them to the slopes of Kholat Syakhl, which means dead mountain in the local Mansi language.
February 1959, 9 students traversed the Ural Mountains, making camp on the slopes of Dead Mountain.
Despite the brutal conditions, the group pressed on, determined to complete their journey. As night fell, they set up their tent on an exposed slope, seeking rest from the freezing winds and temperatures that dropped to -40 degrees Celsius. What happened next remains one of the greatest mysteries of the 20th century. When the group failed to return on schedule, their families grew worried, and search teams were sent out. On February 26th, searchers found the group's tent, and the scene was chilling. The tent was damaged, partially collapsed, and covered in snow. It had been cut open from the inside, as though the hikers had desperately tried to escape. Even more confusing was that their shoes, clothing, and equipment were neatly left behind. Inside the tent, rescuers found food that had been partially cooked, as though the group had been interrupted suddenly. The search teams followed tracks leading away from the tent. About 300 meters away, near a small fire, they found the first 2 bodies, Yuri Doroshenko and Yuri Krivonashenko. Both were dressed only in their underwear and socks, which was strange, given the freezing temperatures of -25 degrees Celsius to -30 degrees Celsius. Doroshenko had burns on his body, and Krivonashenko had bitten a piece of flesh from his hand, likely out of pain or desperation. A few days later, 3 more bodies were found: Igor Dyatlov, Zenaida Kolmogorova, and Rustam Slobodin. They were discovered in positions that suggested they had been trying to return to the tent. Like the first 2, they had little clothing on and had died from hypothermia.
All 3 looked like they were trying to return to their tent. Medical examiners ruled hypothermia as the cause of death.
Slobodin, on the other hand, had a minor skull fracture, although it wasn't fatal. The mystery worsened when the last 4 bodies were found in May, buried under several meters of snow in a ravine farther from the tent. Their injuries were far more severe. Nikolai Thibault Brignol had a fractured skull. Lyudmila Dubinina and Semyon Zolotaryov had massive chest fractures, injuries so intense they were compared to the force of a car crash, but there were no external wounds on their bodies, which made the injuries even more unusual. Dubinina's body was also missing her tongue, eyes, lips, and part of her facial tissue. Some of the others were also missing their eyes and eyebrows, though forensic experts later said these injuries might have been caused by water in a nearby stream. The investigation raised more questions than answers. The Soviet authorities officially concluded that 6 of the hikers had died from hypothermia, and 3 from fatal injuries, but they found no evidence of outside involvement. Because of how mysterious it had gotten, many theories about what happened to the hikers began to emerge. Keep watching to find out what exactly are the different theories. Theories surrounding the mystery of the Dyatlov Pass. Being one of Theos's mysterious incidents in modern history, many theories have been put forward over the years to explain what happened to the 9 hikers. The official report concluded that an avalanche was to blame, but not everyone agrees with this explanation. According to the avalanche theory, the group's tent was buried by snow that came sliding down the slope during the night. This forced the hikers to cut their way out of the tent and flee into the freezing cold without proper clothing. Investigators believed the group became disoriented in the darkness and freezing temperatures, eventually succumbing to hypothermia. While this theory seemed logical at first, many experts argued that the slope wasn't steep enough for a real avalanche. The tent was also still partially standing, and the group's belongings inside were undisturbed, which would not happen in a typical avalanche. Another early idea was that the local Mansi tribe had attacked the hikers. The Mansi people lived near the area, and some believed they might have been angry about the group trespassing on sacred land, but this theory was quickly dismissed. The bodies showed no signs of struggle or injuries that would suggest a violent attack. There were no defensive wounds, and no Mansi footprints were found in the snow. The possibility of an animal attack was also considered. Some thought a bear or wolf might have startled the group, causing them to flee their tent in panic, but the bodies showed no bite marks, scratches, or other injuries typical of an animal attack. If a wild animal had attacked, there would have been clear evidence on the hikers' bodies and at the campsite. Things became stranger when traces of radioactive contamination were found on some of the hikers' clothing. This led to theories that the group had stumbled upon a secret Soviet military experiment or a failed weapons test. During the Cold War, the Soviet Union was known for conducting secret projects, often in remote locations. Some believed the hikers may have seen something they weren't supposed to see, like a nuclear test or a new weapon, and had to be silenced. The radiation levels were unusual, but experts couldn't prove they came from a military source. Some of the hikers had also worked in areas linked to nuclear cleanups, which could explain the contamination. Adding to the mystery were reports of strange lights in the sky around the time of the incident. Witnesses claimed to have seen glowing orange orbs or flying spheres over the Ural Mountains. This sparked theories of UFO involvement. Some people believed extraterrestrial beings might have scared the group out of their tent. Others thought the lights were connected to military parachute mines, which could explain the severe injuries found on some of the bodies. These mines explode mid-air, creating a shockwave that could cause the kind of internal damage the hikers suffered without leaving external wounds. The case's lead investigator, Lev Ivanov, later admitted that his team saw unusual flying spheres during the search, but he said they were told to ignore this information and focus on a simpler explanation. This increased the UFO and military experiment theories, leaving people wondering what the authorities were trying to hide. The hikers' strange injuries, the tent being cut open from the inside, and the radioactive clothing also add to the confusion. While the avalanche theory is still the official explanation, many people still believe there was more to the story. Where Moses, known as Musa in Arabic, is revered as a prophet, Muslims believe Nabi Musa to be his final resting place. The site has deep connections to Moses, who is mentioned more times in the Quran than any other prophet. His story in Islam shares many similarities with the biblical account: his birth, his escape from Pharaoh's decree, and his role in leading the Israelites out of Egypt.
You shall see hail fall from a clear sky and burn as fire upon the ground.
The Nabi Musa site became a place of religious importance around 1269 AD, and ever since, it has been associated with Moses' final chapter in Islamic tradition.
Then in the distance you see Nebi Musa.
Nebi Musa.
Nebi Musa is a mosque which is 700 years old. It's kind of fortified to keep from intruders from coming in.
The connection between this sacred site and the biblical Moses continues to captivate scholars and believers alike. During the Mamluk Sultanate, Sultan Baybars established the shrine and mosque at Nabi Musa to honor the prophet Moses. This act was more than just a sign of respect. It cemented the site's importance in Islamic tradition. The construction of the shrine initiated a centuries-old pilgrimage tradition, a practice that continues to this day. One of the most significant events tied to the site is the annual Nabi Musa festival, a pilgrimage from Jerusalem to the shrine. The festival is traditionally linked to the celebration of Laylat al-Miraj, commemorating the Prophet Muhammad's night journey and ascension to heaven. This vibrant festival demonstrates the lasting legacy of Moses in Islamic thought, as pilgrims honor his life by visiting this sacred place. Nabi Musa is not just a historical site, as we can see, but it is a physical and spiritual link to the story of Moses. Architecturally, it reflects the medieval Islamic style, featuring a mosque, shrine, and accommodations for pilgrims, all preserved and restored over the centuries. The shrine itself is simple but majestic, offering a quiet space for reflection amid the stark desert landscape, which only adds to its mystical aura. But is Nabi Musa really Moses' final resting place? Other sites, such as Jebel Harun, also claim to hold this honor. Located near Petra in modern-day Jordan, Jebel Harun is believed to be the burial place of Moses' brother Aaron. Some suggest that Moses himself could be buried nearby, making this mountain a site of great religious and historical significance. Jebel Harun, or Aaron's Mountain, rises 4,500 feet above sea level, towering over the Petra region. This site has drawn pilgrims for centuries, attracting Jews, Christians, and Muslims, each with their own traditions tied to the sacred peak. At the summit stands a white-domed mosque built in the 14th century, marking Aaron's believed resting place. The journey to the top is challenging and requires stamina, but for those who reach it, the reward is more than the stunning views of the Petra landscape. It's the profound sense of spiritual connection to a place of deep historical and religious importance. The mosque on Jebel Harun, with its simple yet striking white dome, marks the spot where Aaron, the brother of Moses, is believed to be buried. The modest structure consists of a single room and a small courtyard, but its religious significance far outweighs its size. Jebel Harun is revered in Jewish, Christian, and Muslim traditions as Aaron's resting place. According to the Torah, Aaron died and was buried at a location referred to as Mount Hor or Mosera, though interpretations vary. The Jewish historian Josephus, in the 1st century AD, identified the mountain near Petra as Mount Hor, the site of Aaron's death. This belief was later embraced by Christians, who built a Byzantine monastery there, establishing it as a pilgrimage destination. In Islamic tradition, Aaron, known as Harun, is also highly revered. He is acknowledged in the Quran as a prophet who aided his brother Musa, Moses, in leading the Israelites. The current mosque, built during the Mamluk era in the early 14th century, stands atop the mountain as a sacred place for Muslims. However, long before the mosque, a Christian monastery stood here, offering refuge for travelers and pilgrims. Today, the ruins of that monastery can still be seen near the peak, a testament to the mountain's long history as a holy site. The interior of the mosque is simple, with a small room beneath the dome serving as a shrine to Aaron. An inscription above the door notes the mosque's last renovation in 1320 AD, maintaining the modest charm that invites visitors to reflect on the site's spiritual importance. Another significant location often associated with Moses is Mount Nebo, widely regarded as his final resting place. Mount Nebo, located in Jordan and rising about 2,300 feet above sea level, is rich with biblical history. According to the Bible, it was from this mountain that Moses was granted a view of the promised land, though he would not enter it. Instead, it is said that Moses died on Mount Nebo, with his burial site left a mystery. From the summit of Mount Nebo, one can take in breathtaking views of the Jordan River Valley, with the West Bank and, on clear days, even the city of Jerusalem visible in the distance. This panorama offers a sense of what Moses might have seen during his final moments. Over the centuries, Mount Nebo has remained a destination for pilgrims, adding to its deep religious and historical significance. Nearby lies the ancient town of Nebo, further enriching the site's sacred legacy. Mount Nebo's significance is made clearer in the book of Deuteronomy, as mentioned before, where it is described that Moses ascended the mountain viewed the promised land of Canaan, and then passed away, leaving behind a legacy that would echo through millennia. To commemorate this sacred moment, a Christian church was built at the summit during the Byzantine era. Discovered during explorations in the 1930s, the site revealed a rich history beneath its soil. The church, originally constructed in the 4th century in the typical basilica pattern, was expanded in the 6th century. 6 tombs, carved into the rock beneath the church's mosaic floor, added to the site's enigma. Mount Nebo's enduring importance was highlighted in 2000 when Pope John Paul II visited the summit during his pilgrimage to the Holy Land. He planted an olive tree next to the Byzantine chapel, symbolizing peace and reflecting the mountain's spiritual history. 9 years later, Pope Benedict XVI followed suit, delivering a speech and admiring the same landscape that Moses might have seen. A modern addition to the site is a striking serpentine cross sculpture created by Italian artist Gian Paolo Fantoni. This artwork symbolizes both the bronze serpent invoked by Moses in the wilderness and the cross of Jesus, blending 2 powerful symbols of faith and redemption. Mount Nebo is also mentioned in the 2nd book of Maccabees, where it is written that the prophet Jeremiah hid the tabernacle and the Ark of the Covenant in a cave on the mountain. This has led to centuries of speculation about hidden treasures still concealed there. The idea gained further attention when amateur archaeologist Ron Wyatt claimed to have found evidence supporting this theory. Despite Mount Nebo being the most widely accepted location for Moses' burial, the exact site of his grave remains unknown. This mystery captured the imagination of explorer Josh Gates, who embarked on an ambitious journey to uncover possible alternate burial sites. One area that caught his attention was the Sea of Galilee, a region steeped in biblical history. In 2018, Gates and his team set out on an expedition, meticulously planning to search for underwater sites or hidden structures around the Sea of Galilee, hoping to find clues to the long-lost tomb of Moses. With the latest technology at their disposal, Josh Gates and his team were prepared to explore the depths of the Sea of Galilee and its surrounding terrain in their quest to uncover the long-lost tomb of Moses.
You could look down into the Sea of Galilee and see this bump. Is there anything else like this that rises up out of the lake here?
Their first tool was satellite imagery, which allowed them to analyze the terrain and pinpoint areas that matched descriptions from ancient texts. This technique gave them a detailed understanding of the region before they even began the physical search. With the help of advanced mapping software, they created precise maps to guide their expedition. As they ventured into the field, Josh used ground-penetrating radar, GPR, a non-invasive tool that sends radar pulses into the ground and returns signals when it detects subsurface objects. This allowed them to see beneath the earth without disturbing the terrain. Drones equipped with high-resolution cameras provided aerial views of the landscape, capturing images of hard-to-reach places like cliffs and steep areas, giving the team new insights from above. They also used 3D scanning technology to create detailed models of their discoveries, which enabled further analysis and helped them share their findings with the broader public. But it was their discovery beneath the Sea of Galilee that truly captured the world's attention. In October 2018, after weeks of scanning and surveying, Josh and his team uncovered an ancient circular stone monument, a cairn, submerged in the lake. This massive structure, made of basalt rocks, measured 230 feet in diameter and rose 32 feet from the lake bed. Cairns are often linked to burial practices in various ancient cultures, and this one, hidden underwater, hinted at forgotten rituals. Its monumental size and location made it a compelling piece of evidence in the search for Moses' final resting place. But it gets even more interesting. As Josh Gates and his team carefully excavated the submerged site, the possibility that this ancient structure could be linked to Moses' final resting place became more and more plausible. The cairn's massive, deliberate construction beneath the Sea of Galilee, combined with its association with ancient burial practices, suggested it wasn't just a random formation. Instead, it might be marking the tomb of a significant figure, potentially even Moses himself. The challenges of excavation were immense, and they included poor visibility, strong currents, and the sheer depth of the lake. But Josh and his team pressed on with determination. Each stone uncovered brought them closer to unraveling the mystery. Their painstaking efforts revealed more of the structure, carefully documenting every detail. What made this find truly groundbreaking wasn't just its scale, but the possibility that it could rewrite centuries of history. Artifacts found at the site, including pottery shards and ancient tools, were carbon dated to around 3,200 years ago, aligning with the era when Moses is believed to have lived. This timeline added considerable weight to the theory that the can could indeed be connected to Moses's tomb. But the most startling discovery came when the team found a hidden chamber beneath the mound of stones. Inside the chamber lay an ancient tomb. As they uncovered it, Josh Gates and his team couldn't believe what they had found: an undisturbed burial site, sealed for thousands of years. The tomb was constructed with great precision, using large stone blocks that had weathered the passage of time. Inside was a simple coffin, far less ornate than expected, suggesting the focus was on preservation rather than display. When they opened the tomb, the team was stunned. The remains inside were wrapped in linen, still remarkably well preserved due to the unique conditions within the chamber. There were no lavish treasures, only the body, encased in silence. The simplicity of the burial only heightened the sense of mystery, as it seemed to point towards someone of great significance, possibly Moses himself. Josh Gates exclaimed that they had found Moses' tomb, astonished by the revelation. The discovery, hidden beneath the waters of the Sea of Galilee, seemed to contradict centuries of tradition. Could this truly be the long-lost resting place of one of history's most revered figures? While you think about that, it will interest you to know that hiding Moses' place of burial was not a mistake, and it was rather an intentional move. Let's look at various explanations that have been given. Why Moses' tomb was hidden. Moses' tomb remaining hidden marks a significant break from the Torah's tradition of revering the burial sites of Israel's leaders, which began with Abraham purchasing the cave of Machpelah for Sarah, establishing a sacred family burial ground. This tradition was further honored when Joseph risked his status in Pharaoh's court to bury his father Jacob in the same location, and Moses later upheld it by ensuring Joseph's bones were carried out of Egypt during the Exodus. In light of these precedents, it raises the compelling question: why did God conceal Moses' burial place? The likely answer lies in the fear that Moses, due to his immense influence and the miracles he performed, might have been deified by future generations. But there are even more explanations for this. Ralbag offers a compelling, though flawed, explanation. Ralbag, or Rabbi Levi ben Gershon, was a medieval Jewish philosopher and scholar known for his work Milhamet Hashem, The Wars of the Lord, which explored topics like theology, metaphysics, and astronomy. His biblical commentaries blended rationalist philosophy with Jewish teachings, offering logical interpretations of Scripture, such as his explanation for the hidden burial place of Moses. He explained that if Moses' grave were known, future generations might deify him, given the miraculous acts associated with his leadership. Ralbag cites the episode of the copper serpent as evidence of this tendency. Initially, the copper serpent saved Israel from deadly snake bites, but over time, it became an object of idolatry, as indicated in 2 Kings chapter 18, verse 4. If an object crafted by Moses could lead to idol worship, how much more dangerous would Moses' own burial site be? Ralbag's argument gains strength when we examine Moses' own warnings against idolatry in Deuteronomy, chapter 4, verses 15 to 24. Here, Moses emphasizes that the Israelites saw no physical image of God at Sinai and strictly forbids the worship of any form, whether human or animal. Moses includes a stark warning that God is a consuming fire, a jealous God, making it clear that nothing, not even a human figure like himself, should be worshipped. The juxtaposition of Moses' teachings on idolatry with his announcement of his imminent death suggests that Moses was concerned about being deified. After all, the Israelites had witnessed his extraordinary abilities, leading them out of Egypt, performing miracles, and enduring supernatural feats, such as fasting for 40 days and nights. Moreover, Moses remained vigorous and youthful at his death, which could further fuel a belief in his immortality. In this context, Moses' reminder of his mortality is a key element of his final message. Though he performed miracles, his death was a testament to his humanity. By keeping his tomb hidden, God ensured that Moses' legacy would not be tarnished by idolatry. The act of concealing his burial place served as a divine safeguard, reinforcing that Moses, despite his greatness, was not to be worshipped as a god. This underscores the larger biblical message: human leaders, no matter how powerful, remain mortal, and worship is reserved for God alone. Finally, the Torah does not depict Moses as a failed leader. In fact, it affirms him as Israel's greatest prophet, as seen in the special mourning period given for him. Moses led the people with love and successfully prepared them for the transition to Joshua. However, both Moses and God understood the risk that the people might begin to see Moses as a god. To prevent this, God buried Moses in a place that was unsuitable for becoming a shrine. While the burial location was not exactly hidden, it was tied to deep, complex meanings within Israel's history, particularly a painful event that would prevent anyone from elevating Moses to divine status. Do you think it makes sense to hide the burial place of such a powerful leader? We would love to know in the comments. If you enjoyed watching this video, don't forget to leave a like, share it with your family and friends, and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss our next updates. Also, click the next video on your screen to enjoy more exciting content.